Well, hello, furniture people. I'm Joe, and I like refinishing old furniture and antiques. At some point, I decided it would be a good idea to do this, film it, and put it on YouTube. So here we are, turning grit into gold. I'm titling this particular video The Ancestors Dresser, and we'll get into that in a bit. This is another restore find, and you can see this is another maybe 1900, 1910 dresser with some 1970s updates inside. And it included the mirror, which you can see Eddie in here. One of Eddie's ancestors. This is Lucky. Lucky loved to swim. So this was a find that included the mirror, which is a little bit atypical for dressers like this. Usually the mirrors are gone, long gone. This one also had casters on the bottom, and you can see here that it had a maker's mark on the back of it. And the maker's mark, working backwards, tells me that this dresser was once delivered to Kunzelman Esser Furniture in Milwaukee, which was once located on Mitchell Street. It's now the Kunzelman Esser Lofts, and it was manufactured by the Shower Brothers Furniture Factory in Bloomington, Indiana. All of this is available online. You can look it up and see. And as always here, I am performing my standard lead-based paint test. I don't want to put myself, my family, my pets, anybody else in danger. This particular piece was also lead-free, like most other things I've worked on, with one exception. These tests run about $5 a pop. They're well worth the safety in it. And I tested multiple services too. And here I am looking for the right tool. Found it. I'm missing a number of pulls off the front of this. I also didn't like the stance of the desk. It has 4 casters on the bottom, and it makes it look too tall and skinny. And I certainly understand that those are, original or more or less original. I think they're also sort of just traditional. There's so many old pieces that have casters on the bottom, and removing them is not very damaging, or at all damaging for that matter. The casters themselves you can just pop out. It's not hard to do, just a claw hammer. We'll get back to the rest of the caster part later. This top I used a scraper. I've started using this and I rather like it. It will take off an old shellac or a varnish very easily, very quickly. It doesn't take much work, and it really puts very little dust into the air. It's also a good way to approach a veneer top like this dresser without having to worry about sanding through too deeply. The old shellac that I'm peeling off here too also made a very pretty gold dust. It's easy to see here how easily it came off. Like I said, if you don't know better, you would swear that was gold dust. But it's just old shellac or varnish. Once I had the shellac off the top, I needed to take it down a little bit more. So I put on a very light grit sandpaper onto my DeWalt. I kind of like the way the dust is blowing out from side to side here. But to bring this down and go lightly, and I have to admit there was one part on the front left of the dresser that I went a little bit heavier on, and eventually to even out the color I went with a little bit darker stain in one area and did some blending with the rest of the top of the dresser, and eventually it worked out beautifully. You can't actually tell that I made a little bit of a sanding mistake in there. Spend a fair amount of time when I'm working on antiques like this. I tend to think about people that built them, people that own them, the homes that maybe people lived in, whether it was a large fancy mansion somewhere on the lake, or a average single-family home, or maybe a duplex someplace. It could have been anywhere. As a factory piece like this could have landed in any home in the area very easily. spent some time working on the front edges here too. There were some really very, very nice dovetail joints joining the front underneath the veneer. There's a shot of those later on that you'll see. But very quality work from the original craftsman. And that's a 320 grit, and very often to have it flexible and soft enough, I just have a sponge that I wrap a piece of sandpaper in. That does a good job of getting into the grooves. I took a light grit to the sides here. Bring down any scratches and wear and damage on that, and stain it and bring it back to life. Part of the process of going through and restoring an antique like this is sometimes you're adjusting something that the original manufacturer or someone did that you don't really care for. And I think I mentioned earlier that I didn't really like the stance of the desk. I think it looks too tall and skinny. So I pulled the casters out with a claw hammer, and then these mounts that the casters went into, I pulled out with a little pointy pry, doing no damage to it. And you'll see in the final shots that the dresser itself doesn't look so tall and skinny anymore, and I like its stance much better. And on the flip side, certainly post-original, the liner that somebody put in, evidently in the 1960s, based on the design alone, into the drawers, it did two things. One, it was very durable, and I had to work a little bit to get it out. Two, it actually did a fantastic job protecting the bottoms of the drawers. They were in great shape. Once I pulled out the flowery paper, it was all good. And you can see I'm pointing out these, they're ruts really. And the way this dresser was built, the drawers were built, and I'll show it here. In the inside, you can see these metal scallops. And I believe the idea was that those would support the bottoms of the drawers. But at the end of the day, honestly, the result isn't great because it didn't support the bottoms of the drawers. What it did was make gouges in them. And not the small drawers at the top. It was the two larger ones that would have been carrying a heavier load of clothing, towels, whatever. So what I decided to do was reinforce those bottoms a bit. see the curvature of the drawer there very easily. And I cut to length a 3/8 inch board, and I used my nail gun and fastened it in on the back of the drawer, and then now the front of the drawer. This actually worked wonderfully well to reinforce things. And I did this on both of the two large drawers. Now, after I've cleaned up that old damaged shellac, pulling back here and using the Minwax stain to restain and begin the process of resealing the top of this dresser, and ultimately came up with a beautiful result. And this moment in the process, for me in many ways, is my favorite part, because at this point I've taken off the damaged shellac and varnish and whatever might be on a piece, and I've sanded it. And at this point, when you put the new Minwax on, new stain on, really the life of the wood begins to pop again. It's just gorgeous. And even here, in a bit, I'll get to the portion that's closest to the camera that has kind of an L shape there, and how I dealt with that, blended in, and eventually had a very good result. But as you get into looking at the grain and my final photographs of it and whatnot, just a beautiful result, and I just love this stage of the process. I always rub the stain in as much as I can to fill in any little pore of wood, any crack, any portion of it. These edges they just pop. They're fantastic. Look at that. Even as we get to the tail end of the staining in a few moments. So some different shots, different angles, what the dresser top looks like after I got that glove off. Move the camera around a little bit. And you can see I was probably filming it at the worst angle that I could have. Even now, just the way that veneer pops, that edge, dovetail joint was over on the right there. Just gorgeous. I had a little work to do on the mirror. You can see some scuffs. It was dirty. I think I spent more time trying to clean the glass on this thing than I did on the wood. I cleaned it up and then took some Minwax. Oh, hello. And all the little dings and nicks and anything else that was in the mirror were pretty minor, and it really pretty much just covered up with a coat of varnish. And after that, and I don't believe that I show it within this video, but some polyurethane to keep it safe. It's for so many of these antique dressers, they were originally built and had a mirror that came with them. And very often when I do see them or find them, the mirror is gone, long gone. And my guess is between that they, other than when they're attached to the dresser, and they also have a pivot, the two little ovals on the either side of the posts. If they're not attached to the dresser, they're very uneven, kind of unstable. So my working theory is that many of them were broken at one time or another and then just thrown away. And here's a little more detail on how really quickly and easily this cleaned up. It's really pretty again. Here we are. So there were 7 drawer pulls originally with this dresser. Only 5 when it got into my hands. So I needed to come up with new pulls. And I found these kind of copper, and I like how they look. We're getting close here. Now only a few minutes left together in this video, and I'm working on the first of my, especially on a surface top like this that is going to receive the majority of the wear and tear is I always try to do at least 5, maybe 6 coats of polyurethane. And it's a semi-gloss Veneer product, brushed on, obviously. And it gives a beautiful result as you go through it. It dries relatively quickly and easily. And you can see brush marks when you first put it on. Even here you can see kind of the purple hue that it has. But as it dries, that goes away, and the polyurethane itself, the brush marks go away for the most part. And the one thing you do have to be careful of is that you don't have too much in an edge, along some of the detail work, because that'll show up as a white line. Even if you do that, you can sand it out pretty easily. And polyurethane it again, and just have a really pretty result at the end.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really think.
And here we are with shots of the final result. In this particular piece of the mirror, there's the edge of an old photograph tucked in there. And in my imagination, that was someone's husband, wife, sweetheart, son or daughter, maybe during World War I, World War II, who knows. It was tucked in there. I didn't really have the heart to dig it out. Nice dovetail joint, my new hardware. When you look at that, like I did, I hope you think a little bit about the people that came before you and left too soon, met something in your lives, and that you think about your ancestors. Please stay healthy, stay safe, and be healthy, everyone.
I think it's different for everyone. Some of us need work, others need fun. Some of us need purpose to overcome, but try to do what you love when it's said and done, 'cause there's so many differences